what ended up unfolding for me was understanding that it doesn't actually matter how it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I had such a almost like perfectionism, like it has to happen naturally because I will be like a failure if it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that IVF meant failure for me.
I want a little background on you as a person too, because that obviously goes into so much of who you are in your business and what the next part of your story is with IVF. Tell me a little bit about the story with your dad.
So I didn't meet my dad till I was 15. And I knew that he existed. And yet I had a stepdad that came into my life when I was 2. So I had that father figure in my life. And my mom said one day I just started calling him dad. My mom tells me the story that when I was little and I didn't have any father figure in my life, I would sit on the front stoop when I was like 2 years old, and she'd be like, "What you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm waiting." She's like, "Who you waiting for?" And I was like, "My dad." And she lost it.
Got full body chills.
Yeah. And so I feel like I manifested this man named Albert who came into our life.
It sounds like right then, right?
Right then, and rescued us essentially, because my mom was a single mom. She was working in a casino. We just were getting by always. And she fell in love with him. We moved in and I just started calling him dad and he loved it. I'm like, "You're my dad. You're the father figure in my world."
Aww.
Yeah. And so over time, I started to understand that he wasn't my biological dad, and I was pretty aware as a kid of what was going on. And my mom said, "One day you'll meet your real dad," and I'm like, "Okay." And that day was after my mom got into a really bad car accident. She was like, "I really want you to meet your real dad. It's really important to me." She's in the intensive care unit. I'm like, "Okay, anything, of course." So thank God she was okay. And then after that, we had dinner, and I remember meeting him for the first time and sitting there not saying a word. I was 15. I didn't say one word. Honestly, I genuinely wanted to know if his mom had boobs, because I was so flat. I just wanted to know am I ever going to get boobs?
Oh my God.
I swear to God. They're my mom's
do you have any pictures of any of your immediate female relatives?
This is what I'm thinking about when I'm 15. My mom's like, "Do you have any questions for your father?" I'm like, "Am I going to get boobs?"
He's like, "Are you asking for me to purchase them? Or are you asking for genetics?"
Nice to meet you, but what cup size is grandma?
I just wanted to break it up there with a laugh.
Did you feel though almost no. A loyalty to your stepdad, that you were cheating on him, and do you know was there any of that?
There was big time. Big time. And so I'll share that too. But that day when I met him, I didn't talk at all. Him and my mom talked the whole time. We went outside and he was like, "Hold on, I have something for you." And he went to his car and he got 15 roses. And he said, "This is for every year of your life that I miss, and I'm never going to miss another one."
Oh,
I know.
You're like, "I don't even care about the boobs."
And it wasn't like the shows, on TV when you reunite with your parents and you're like, "Oh my God." It wasn't. I was just "I don't know who you are. You're a stranger." You know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't have any feelings towards him. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him. I was neutral. It was just nothing. So when he gave me those roses, looking back, I feel emotional thinking about that, and it's beautiful. And at the same time, in that moment, I was just like, whatever. I did what my mom told me to do. Mm-hmm. She wanted, But he was persistent and consistent, and he kept trying to get into my life, and he kept trying to make an effort.
And that's a hard time. 15, you know everything.
I mean, most parents are trying to give away their teenagers, let alone take on a new one.
A free sign on their back.
100%.
Have you called Lifetime at all? Have you pitched this?
It's funny because my sister, who I didn't know I had a sister, but my sister.
There's a sequel now.
We've talked.
Yeah. This is a 2-part.
There's so much to it. I mean, I walked into so when I was 16, I went to their house for the first time for the Christmas Hanukkah party.
And she's younger, your sister?
My sister's older.
Older, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
she just turned 58 yesterday, so she's a lot older. I'm 35. And I walked into this party at, 16 years old, and I was an only child. I'm walking into a whole new
Instant
family.
family. Yeah.
Instant family. I had like 10 nieces and nephews. I had other siblings. I had
So it's
so
almost
much
like
family.
being adopted, I would assume.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like,
yeah, it was so wild because my whole life I always wanted nieces and nephews. I never wanted siblings. Like my mom was like, "Do you want a sibling?" I'm like, "No." Like I liked being the only child.
You're like, I want part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I just wanted nieces and nephews, and then I manifested that too. Like that's how I look back and I see like, whoa. So yes, it was really hard for my stepdad. He had a really hard time with it. When Saul, my dad, would come and like make an effort to be with me, and that time I had my permit, so all I wanted to do was drive, and he could give that to me. So he taught me how to parallel park. He drove me around, but when I would go see him, I would literally walk to the corner of the busy street, like where the busy street was, and get picked up there because I didn't want him to know that I was like going to see him, because I know it was so hard for him.
But that just
Yeah.
shows how compassionate you were at a younger
Yeah.
age.
Wow.
I mean,
I
you were
hadn't thought
you
about
were
that.
helping people at that age. I mean, truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who's the coach now?
You are, obviously.
I'm learning things already, and we're 18 minutes into this thing.
I mean, that's a really powerful reflection that you just provided. So thank you.
When there's a shop that opens up across the street, you watch your back.
Casey's coaching. What else do you want to share from that after your?
I mean, just the fact that over the years we did develop a relationship and we did get very close. And I, in the beginning, I was like, I don't love this man, but I've grown to love him so much. And I'm so grateful that he was in my life for longer than he wasn't ultimately, right? Like longer than the 15 years. And unfortunately, in 2020, he had passed away of COVID. So yeah, it's life.
He was a family friend to my husband's family, which is then how Ashley and I know each other. And he was just awesome. He was a great, great guy. Did you feel any resentment to him for not being around in those beginning years, especially after becoming a mom and a parent?
No.
Yeah.
No, because he was navigating his own stuff. Yeah. He had a lot going on, and I don't want to share about it right now, but I have understanding and compassion for him as well. And I forgive him for not being there.
But that may have changed your trajectory. I mean, that may have.
Yeah. And I think my mom has a lot to do with it, because I think that there could be a lot of bitterness there between parents that, they were never together. They had me one night. I was a one and done deal. And my mom never even thought she could have kids. She has Crohn's disease. She has a lot of issues. She didn't know she was pregnant for 5 months. There's so much more to the story, but
oh my God,
I know we have a lot to cover.
But how strong of her to go through with the you know what I like? I mean, I'm sure when she found out, she was like, "What am I gonna do?"
Yeah,
very scary. She was walking on the boardwalk, and she was like walking with a friend. She's like, if I would have known any better, I just felt life inside of me.
Wow. Ooh.
And she's like, I don't know, that hot dog was it wasn't the hot dog.
It wasn't the hot dog.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And she always instilled in me, like, you can never have enough love in your life. And so like, that's why I met him. I'm gonna cry. That's why I went forward with meeting him. And because we were open to it, and she taught me that it was okay, instead of being like bitter, wanting to be the only parent.
Yeah.
This whole family that has brought so much love into my life, that has like been like such a huge part of my life. To think that I wouldn't have known them or like been part of their life is just like, it's crazy to me.
I want to go back to something so powerful you just said. You said, I forgive him.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to take that lightly, or anybody that is listening to take the power of forgiving lightly. That is not a gift that you just give to the person that you're forgiving. That is a gift you give yourself, to let yourself feel free of that resent, that anger, that hurt, that sadness. There is a lot of work involved in forgiving somebody, but once you get there, the amount of weight that you take off of your shoulders and the amount of space that you free up to enter all that love. I mean, what a prime example you just shared with us about having that family and having all of that because you were able to forgive.
But that's something, Gianna, the second part to that is like, okay, yes, it is so much lighter to, if someone's giving you hate, if someone's sending you negativity, bad energy, you know, they're a constant dark cloud in your life. For example, it is so easy to say, well, poor me. Like, what about me? Like, I'm holding this resentment against you because I'm standing on this hill. Like, I'm going to die on this hill. So how do you, in manifesting, flip that switch? Because it, like, you know, it's not easy. Like, I'm Irish. Like, we're grudgy people.
I think it comes down to understanding your own peace and, you know, being a being that wants to feel peace and not hold on to grudges and not hold on to, you know, I think there's a quote from the Buddha. It's like when we're angry, it's like holding on to a hot coal and we're getting
no
burned.
one,
yes.
Yes. No one knows what you're doing. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of being aware enough. Like I always say with manifestation and doing the inner work, like you have to really fucking care about yourself. Not in a selfish, egotistical way, but like yourself, your soul, your
but
peace.
how do you convince yourself? Because I struggle with this. Oh, I'm being a doormat. Like I'm just letting people walk all over me if I don't feel this anger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's intricacies to every situation. You know, every situation is deep and all of that. But it's like, yeah, I wonder if there's another way to find resolve instead of having anger be the thing that's like protecting you from being the doormat. Because the things that we hold on to are our protectors, and they're there for a reason, and they're valid because they're keeping us safe to some degree. And at the same time, there's other ways that we can get that protection within ourselves without having to be so angry or shameful or resentful or you name it.
I mean, anger is such a downfall for some people. I think it really they rob themselves of their own happiness. I try to tell everybody it's just like not worth. Life is too short to stay angry at somebody.
A lot of times the anger, and I teach this to my students too, it's like the lid to the pot. And when you take the anger away, what's underneath? And it's usually like a deep sadness. And so then it's about addressing the sadness and releasing the sadness. So there's just so many layers to it.
Yeah. Oh. So that is the story of your parents and your mom and your dad. And now I want to hear the story of you becoming a parent, because it was not black and white. It was not point A, point B, but you handled all of it with such grace and positivity. As you see, you're like, you handle everything else with your life like that. Like, first of all, I don't think I said it in the beginning, but I know Ashley personally, and I'm just absolutely obsessed with the human being and the soul that you are. And I think like that's why I felt it was great to have you on to talk about this, especially for such a deep type of topic like IVF. And how you handled it may not be how everybody is able to it, because it is dark, but I'm sure you've shared with me, like you had really dark moments in it too. And that's how it can really take women down. But I think you have a beautiful, positive result at the end of it, baby Maverick.
Maverick. Yeah. So sorry, just to interrupt, you had your business before you had Maverick, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you were in this space of positivity and manifesting and success, and like every box was checked.
Yeah. I mean, of course there's ups and downs, right? Everyone has ups and downs along the way, but yes, I was. And I don't think manifestation is all about positivity too. I think that there's a lot of like, you know, it is about dealing with what's going on inside of you. And I think that IVF was like one of the things that was going on inside of me, like this deep unworthiness that I didn't even know was there. So it's like a big part of the journey, because a lot, this whole thing of like, what's, you know, when you can't get pregnant, I've asked myself, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? What have I done wrong in my life to deserve this? You know, there's so many questions that have come up along the way that have taken me down like such a healing path to manifesting this like amazing result. And it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't always easy. And I also want to say, Gianna, thank you. I love you. I feel the same exact way about you. It's a love fest.
It is a love
so I don't even know where to start. Where should I start?
I guess when you and
when you
Todd
realized.
said,
Yeah,
let's do this.
Yeah.
So I was never really ready because Todd is 9 years older than me too. So there's that. And I was never feeling like super, super ready when like we maybe should have been super ready. Like at the beginning of our marriage, we've been married for 8 years, and we've been trying for 3 of those years to get pregnant. So 5 years of being married, I still wasn't ready to have a baby.
How old were you?
And I was 27 when I got married, and I had a baby at 34.
And you started trying at
31.
31-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. And we went
Which
to the doctor
isn't, that's still young. I mean, like now.
So young.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's,
for sure. But I was like building my business, and I was doing all these things, and I was just like, I'm just not ready. Like I can't birth a baby right now. I'm birthing so many other things.
And then COVID.
And then COVID. And so I was just putting it off, and we had been trying, not trying, but trying.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was happening. And my sister was the one who was like, you should just go get checked. And I went and got checked. Everything was normal, unexplained. So unexplained infertility is what my diagnosis was, if you could call it that. So we had done IUIs, right? Like inseminations, and nothing was working. They were unmedicated. And then I switched clinics because my doctor that I had originally went to wanted to put me on Adderall. Have you guys ever heard this?
No.
Yeah. He wanted to put me on Adderall. He's like, Adderall helps women get pregnant.
What?
I'm like, I've taken Adderall before.
Because you're focusing. Like you're like, today's the day. Let's go.
Exactly. Like, wait, where does this come from?
Wait, is this is for real?
He's kind of like a mad scientist guy, this doctor. And he's old school, but also like, yeah, he thinks that it helps. 90%, I found out 90% of his patients were on Adderall.
What does it do?
I couldn't explain it to you at all. Like I could not explain it to you. And
so you ended up going on?
Thing. No,
okay.
I didn't. I was like, my intuition was like, hell no, I need a new clinic. So I switched doctors.
I can't hear what you're saying. Like I
know.
What?
I know. Yeah.
We've moved
what
we've
kind of
moved on.
kickbacks?
Kacie is still 30 seconds behind, like trying to figure it out.
Keep going. I'm sorry. Okay, so you didn't do the Adderall.
Yeah, what kind of kickbacks from the pharmaceutical company are you getting here?
I know. I'm genuine. I want to know.
Does it matter if you do the generic or like, geez? Okay, keep going.
Seriously. So, always follow your intuition on anything you do, anything medically, anything in life, but especially fertility. You have to follow what your gut is telling you, and that's going to create your plan. So I went to a different clinic, and we did 3 more inseminations, and with medicine, with Clomid.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that's ever been on Clomid can relate to this most likely. I had suicidal thoughts on Clomid.
Did you?
Yeah, it was awful. Like I couldn't get a hold of myself. I couldn't get a hold of my reality. It was really crazy.
You know what? I'm going to stop you there. If you say, oh, if anyone, I'm sure so many women keep that in the darkness because of so many stereotypes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know what? I have a baby. I can't go. I can't even talk about that. Like, I just need to be grateful. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure they,
they justify
they just
it.
pile on. Yes.
Oh
yeah. And I remember like pulling over on the side of the road and just losing my mind and having that thought. And I was just like, this isn't me. Like there was another voice that was like, this isn't you. This is the medicine. And I called my doctor and I was like, I need to get off of this. You're only on it for 5 days. Yeah.
Did you tell
5
Todd?
days.
Did Todd know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's like, you're okay. This is the medicine. You are safe. We're just talking me back. And it worked. And
oh my gosh.
I mean, I didn't attempt it. It just was, just was there in my mind.
Well,
and that's something
as someone who, if you've never thought about it and then like it's there in your face, you're like, whoa, like I'm sure that's like startling.
Yeah. It was very, very, very startling. So they switched the meds to a different one called letrozole, and I didn't have any of those same
Oh, wow.
experiences.
Good.
I'm like, this medicine should be banned. This is dangerous.
What does it do? What is the purpose of it?
It helps you produce more follicles, so more eggs.
Okay.
So, you know, there was a time after those 3 IUIs where they were like, you have 4 follicles, you could have triplets.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, at this point, it had been like a year of this at this point, probably, of going around and trying and doing IUIs, pausing, trying naturally, doing other things. So I'm like, triplets? All right. I didn't know anything.
Right.
Now I'm like looking back, I'm like, oh God, never. But it didn't work. So it was devastating. After having like my hopes up of like, oh my God, there could be triplets or twins or one baby. It didn't work. And the doctors came to me, and this was in February, I think, of 2020. And they said, you know, it's basically, it's time for IVF. And I did not think I was going to need IVF. I did not. I said to my friends, I'm like, I have 3 more rounds of medicated IUIs, and just pray to God that I don't need IVF. I was so against it. And I had started sharing about my fertility journey a little bit online and on my Instagram, and someone sent me a book, and it was called Hold On Baby, and it was about her IVF journey. And I got that book in the mail, and I looked at it, and I put it at the highest point in my closet. And I said, I'm not going to read that because I don't need that.
Just quickly, if someone doesn't know, they might be like, what is the difference between IUI and IVF? Just if there's a simple.
Yeah. So IUI is it's a utero insemination where it's like a turkey baster, right? They're taking the sperm and they're inserting it into they're helping it along into your cervix so that it can hopefully swim up and find
that
the
is
egg.
Still like you're being charted and you're doing blood work and like you have to come in like now today.
Yeah, for sure. And there was all of that. I was someone who hated blood work. Like
I hate blood work.
Oh, that's
terrified. Now I'm just like, whatever, stick me. Like, I'm good. You go through it so much in fertility, you have to get over it. And so IVF is, they help you grow your follicles, like with that medicine or with shots in your stomach, usually with the shots in your stomach. And they retrieve those eggs out of your uterus. So it's called an egg retrieval. And then they take the sperm and they fertilize the eggs, and they wait a week to see which eggs fertilized and if you have any blastocysts, which are the beginning stages of an embryo. And then you take the blastocysts, whatever you have, and they send it off for genetic testing. And if they're viable, they'll tell you. If they're chromosomally, that's a hard word. If they're viable, then you can move forward into a transfer cycle. So that's kind of like the short of it.
And it's even more waiting and more hoops to jump through and
the waiting.
Yeah. Tell me about that. How did you manage I'm sure the absolute circus of thoughts going on in your head at all times during that?
It was so up and down all the time. Luckily, my husband, thank you, Bob. My husband is like such a strong partner where he is just like always positive and always like, it's going to happen. And I had moments where I would just cry and be like screaming, why me? Why me? Like, I don't understand. I should have started earlier. Like, I should have done this. I should have done that. Or what's wrong with me? I just went on such a journey of all the thoughts. And like, instead of trying to stop the thoughts, I tried to welcome them in. No matter what they were, because I couldn't fight them. Like, they were there. You know,
the other thing that's hard is going back to like the triplets, you mourn that loss because like, then you punish yourself for allowing the hope of like, oh my God, triplets, like how cute is my Christmas card? You can't help it because you're so eager for that. And then you mourn that loss of that future. Every time you hear that.
Every time. Every time. I mean, every negative pregnancy test, I feel like I mourned a loss.
Yeah. I mean, Kacie and I talk about that a lot, about how women were so emotionally charged, right? And that even like you try 1 month and you're like, you automatically, we're sitting here doing the math in our head. Well, if it works, then it's born this day. And then this is what this is going to be like. You might as well already have the baby, like the second after you have sex, like that is,
Right.
or the second after the IUI or the IVF, like you've already planned out that whole life. And that is just loss after loss after loss.
It's so true. It's
So
so
how
true.
many
And there was,
rounds, or so we're going back. You had 3 more rounds of IUI. That's where your head
I
was
had
at.
3 more rounds of IUI. And what's interesting is I once had a birthday IUI. So to connect the stories to my dad and this like final IUI that I had before we switched gears, it was on my birthday, December 28th. And I remember getting a call from I was like, this has got to be good luck. Meanwhile, my dad was taken to the hospital and he was put on a ventilator. And honestly, I never thought he was going to die. Like I did not know he was going to die. Like I don't know why. I don't know if I was in denial or.
That was still like the crazy COVID where we knew nothing and it was, you couldn't see anyone and you were whisked away to a hospital and like that was peak scary.
Yeah,
exactly. And my stepmom, Beverly, she's amazing.
The best.
She called me on my birthday and she was just like, I just want you to know, like, things are not good. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, I really was so shocked. And because I just
had
told
you
her,
just
I was like,
seen him or something?
I hadn't just seen him, but I just like I don't know. I just didn't think that it was time. Like I just was surprised. And she told me like she had a talk with him because I said, I just had an IUI, and she's like, I had a talk with him, and even though he was on a ventilator, she was just talking to him, and he wasn't responding or responsive or awake. But she's like, I told him like that you had, this IUI, and that he can't die on your birthday. I was just like, oh my God. So I think he died literally. He waited till the end of my birthday and he died at 1:42 in the morning.
No
wow.
way.
Yeah.
He loved you so much.
Thanks. I feel like it's such an honor. Like I actually feel like it's like a very full circle like thing. This is like a therapy session.
Welcome. Stay a while. Yes, yeah, we
are. So like I felt like that IUI it could have gone one of two ways. I was like, oh my gosh, like he's with me and he's going to help me get pregnant.
Yes.
And like, this is going to be so amazing. Like, this has got to be it. This is it. This is it. And it wasn't it. And there was so much grief there that I just felt like
it was
my
a
body
1-2
was
punch
like,
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it just didn't happen. And I needed a break. I think that's another thing people don't talk about is like the breaks that they have to take when they're in fertility treatment.
And how much pressure did you put on yourself for that? Like, I'm wasting more time, and like you have to, but that's another layer of disappointment. And
definitely, because you're always calculating time in your mind. Yes. And I'm thinking about my husband's age, and I'm thinking about how old he's going to be when my kid's 10, or like, just all those thoughts are so real. And yet for my mental health, I needed to like really pause. And we were in Florida and we had this like consult with the doctor, and Todd was like, I think we should just keep going. We should just keep going. We should do IVF. Like, let's just go into it. This is what the doctor's saying. I was like, I'm just not ready. And from that point, you might be surprised to hear this, I went on like a whole spiritual journey where I was like, okay, I ended up doing 2 mushroom ceremonies to figure out why I had infertility.
Is that like ayahuasca or is that different?
It's different.
It's like ayahuasca light.
Psilocybin. Yeah.
Like you're not puking for days. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I ended up doing ayahuasca.
How was that? Okay, so that scares me. And I've seen, my husband watches the Pat McAfee show, and they always have Aaron Rodgers on, and he's done like the darkness retreats, the ayahuasca. Like, were you scared of like what you were gonna like?
I was freaking terrified. Woo. Terrified.
So what did you find out? Because I'm the biggest baby, so I can talk about maybe wanting to do. I don't think I'll ever know. So what did you find out?
I found out. She showed me my family. Like, she was like, "This is gonna happen for you."
Wow.
And when I say she, ayahuasca is like the grandmother medicine. It's a grandmother spirit. And so when you are taking ayahuasca, it's taking a medicine that is like speaking to you. So like during the process, she is speaking to you, showing you things, taking
But
you on a
don't you
journey.
also see like what you need to let go of? Like, don't you also like see yourself
Yeah.
very clearly?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what did you see that you were doing that was detrimental to your growth or your health?
Thank you for saying that. So much opened up on that. So the first thing that when I was going into it, I was like, oh shit, this shit's strong. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing
like
this.
Right away it kicks in?
It takes half an hour. So when it started to like seep in, I was freaking out. And I had to start to like let go, and I started panicking, and I went to one of the helpers and I was just like, am I okay? Like I'm freaking out right now. And she's like, you need to surrender. You need to surrender. You need to surrender. Yeah, I'm fighting it. She's like, go sit down at your spot. She like brought the sage over to me.
Oh my God, you're like a kindergartner.
I was going to say she was like a toddler. She was like, go sit down at your place in the circle.
Ashley, where's your mat? Go sit. I'll bring you some juice.
It's literally like that. It was like that. And she helped me just like kind of drop in. And the first image that I saw was just like these shoelaces and zippers just being tightened so tight. And she's like, this is your energy system. It is so tight. You don't have any flow happening. And then it started like showing me this like very masculine energy. And she was teaching me like how to loosen it and how to balance the feminine and the masculine energies in me. Because it was like when she was showing me the shoelaces and like the zippers, it was very like that. Like it was just, that was like the visual, and I was in it, and it was big in my mind. And the message that was coming through was just like, you're trying to control everything and you need to stop.
Casey's raising her hand.
Yeah.
Head over to YouTube for all of the visuals. So that was immediate, like that. And I'm so
it was
interested
the first thing I saw.
Like, do you have to remind yourself of this, or like once you ayahuasca, like, are you fixed, or no? Is it like a constant journey?
I think it's a constant journey. I think there's a big integration process where like you get a lot of information, and then what are you going to do with it? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with that information? Because it's not like you're healed. There's definitely a cellular healing that happens where you have this deeper level of understanding of yourself and a deeper awareness of yourself and healing. Because the spirit's very healing, and there's work to be done in your life. How are you going to integrate that into your life? And during that ceremony, I started dancing. I started moving my body in ways that I have never moved my body before. I was trying not to judge myself, because you're still aware of yourself, you know? So I was just like, all right, just move. And I was just moving, and I was letting the energy flow, and I was feeling it from my like core, like my hips, my sacral chakra, like this your like sexual release. Energy center. Mm-hmm. It was a big release. And I was like, oh my God, this is like feminine. This is where babies are born from. Yeah. Like this energy, oh my God, the feminine is so magnetic, and it's so like,
I have chills
so
right now.
Desirable.
Yikes.
And just God. So like, it was so fucking intense. And I was like, oh my God. So I have continued to work with that feminine energy that was flowing through me. Like when I get into it, I do this like weird arm thing where I'm just like, it's like a goddess, like, you know,
I can
like
just see you like in the pickup line, and Todd's like, she's fine. She's actually fine.
like when Maverick's older and he walks in.
Dude,
and I'm, like,
I was just thinking
like,
that.
Doing
No,
my dancing things.
Dude, your kid's name is Maverick, and his mom does ayahuasca. Like, you are Stacy's mom. Like, there will be tales. There will be songs sung of you.
So funny. That's so funny. So yeah.
But okay, so she showed you your family. Tell us that.
Yeah, she showed me my family walking on the beach. There was 4 of us. There was a girl and a boy, and
which is what your eggs were.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
I just jumped ahead in the story because I knew that personally, but like
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, so you did a break for how long to ayahuasca?
Okay, so I did ayahuasca.
Where did you do it? Also, did you? Because there's a place in Florida you can do it.
Casey's like, yeah. What's the exact address and number of the place?
Is there
just asking for a friend?
Just do Ashley 10 for 10% off.
That's funny.
God. How much does it cost? Because it's like a 4-day thing, right?
We did it for 2 days.
Okay.
And it was like $300 or something.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
wow.
can't get an Airbnb
I had to,
for that much.
I know.
You're staying over.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a hotel, and it was, there was about 30 people in ceremony.
Are you going to
It
do
was
it
wild.
again?
I don't know if I would do ayahuasca again. I don't know if I feel called to it, but I would definitely do mushrooms like at least once a year.
Okay. Well, people
Mushrooms are
microdose
amazing.
now. That's what the kids are doing these days.
Yeah.
That's what the kids are doing.
This
Yeah.
we're
I
gonna
can't
have to
wait
we're
to,
gonna
like-
have to put a disclaimer on this episode. Like, this is the one to put your AirPods in. Like,
I definitely, when I'm done breastfeeding, like I wanna microdose.
Get back to that.
Get back to that life.
There's
There's
like
just so much.
there's thousands of listeners that are aggressively nodding in agreement right now.
But let me disclaim this as like I use these medicines in a very like ceremonial setting. I'm not like, let's take mushrooms and go out.
Yeah.
You know? It's very like, it's super intentional.
Right.
It's with prayer, and
no, that's what
I'm,
your Adderall's
really
for.
like, exactly.
No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Pop an Adderall, hit the town. Yeah, but it's very intentional, and it's to deepen, it's to grow, and it's to heal. So that's always my intention when I am doing any kind of plant medicine. So the break was from January until it ended up being until August. So my plan was
okay.
it was
That's
a long
long
time.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during that
I did
time,
ayahuasca
like,
in April.
but during that time, like, how many friends got pregnant, and how many, like, you probably, like, it was
Oh my
probably in
God.
your face every day.
So many. I had like a major breakdown, which I didn't see coming, at like my friend's kid's first birthday party, and all of my community and their kids are there, and I'm just like, this is really intense. And I left just sobbing, not out of any jealousy, like not out of anything. I'm not like that. I'm just, it would just hit me in a way that I just didn't expect. I really didn't. I didn't think
Aside
about
from
it.
that breakdown, did you feel that you were able to release some of the pressure after seeing that family of 4 and being like, okay, it's going to happen, I just don't know when?
I definitely had more faith in it.
Yeah.
I definitely had more faith in it happening, because when you're going through this and you are trying month after month, and after that, I had a breakthrough of like, well, before I did ayahuasca, I did a mushroom ceremony, and in that ceremony, I had this profound knowing that came at the end that was like, you're going to get pregnant naturally. You don't need IVF.
Oh.
So I had this like intense knowing that I was going to get pregnant naturally. And I said to Todd, I'm going to give it till the end of the summer, and if it doesn't happen, then we can move forward.
Okay.
And it didn't happen. So I was just
But then
like,
you probably doubted it. Like, then you were probably like, oh my gosh. Like,
I did, for sure. I was like, wait, why am I was confused. I was
Right.
like, you know, I felt it so strongly. And then ayahuasca showed it to me. And then what ended up unfolding for me was understanding that it doesn't actually matter how it happens.
Yeah.
Because I had such a like, almost like perfectionism. Like, it has to happen naturally, because I will be like a failure if it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that IVF meant failure for me.
Oh.
That's what I really truly thought. So when I made the decision to do it, I grabbed the book at the top of my closet and I started
what's it
reading
called?
It's called Hold On Baby.
Okay.
I grabbed it and I sobbed, because I was like, oh my God, she's talking to me. Like, it felt so validating, and everything she was saying was just landing so intensely into my heart. And I was just like, okay, this is good. This book was meant for me to read, and I'm going to do this. So I ended up doing it. I went through a whole round of IVF. I went through a whole round of egg retrieval, fertilization, waiting to see if any
How
of the
many
embryos.
did you get? And then how many were viable?
Yeah. So I had like a good amount of eggs, like 12, which I heard
Wow.
were good.
Yeah.
And
what's the bar? Like, anything over X is good.
honestly, I think
you can't really tell, because you could get 20, but none of them could be viable.
Right.
Where you could get one, and that one's great, and that's the baby.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's so hard about it.
Totally.
And to be viable, isn't it like 98%, or like it's like 95 doesn't cut it, right?
Right.
Like, it's like a crazy threshold.
Well, the thing about it is, like, we have how many? I think 46 chromosomes. in our DNA. And so if your embryo has 47, it's not viable. If your embryo has 45, it's not viable. If your embryo, there's
so many factors.
It has to match.
Yeah.
So out of that round, and I think something that that women don't talk about is like at that clinic, I was treated so poorly. I was treated like a number. Ugh. They didn't care about me.
It was like a factory.
I was a factory, and I hated it there. Like I felt so, the way they handled everything, I just didn't like it at all. And I got the 12 eggs. They fertilized on day 3. You have to wait 6 days. On day 3, they were like, you know, you still have, I think, 11 in the game. And I was like, that's amazing. I was so excited. And then by day 6, they were like, yeah, you have 1. And I was like, 1?
Well, that's
like,
like
the math isn't
just
mathing.
had 11.
Yeah.
The math wasn't mathing.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. And they were like, it's not. And they grade them too. And if it's not like a super high quality or
that's what I think that's what I was saying. That's what I remembered. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't it was like fair quality is what they were calling it. And they were like, do you want to genetically test it? And I was like, absolutely. Like, yes. So you have to wait 10 days to see if this embryo is viable. I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting. I just had this gut feeling like it wasn't. I just kind of knew like it wasn't. And so I remember getting the call from the doctor. I was like looking at hardwood floors, and I was the only person in this like showroom. I was the only person there. They have a code to get in. And I took the call, and I sat in this corner chair that they had, and he was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's not a viable embryo. And I was just fucking shattered. I was just like, what?
In that process,
even though I knew it.
Are you still like, do you have to see that round through before you can start another round? Or can you be like retrieving eggs in the interim? Or no, do you have to wait until afterwards to start the retrieval process again?
That's a good question.
Like, is there an overlap?
They want you to wait.
Yeah.
They suggest that you wait. Because I was like, I had the same thought. Like,
I would be in there. I'd be like, let's go. Yeah.
But you have to take shots for 10 days. You have to build. It's like your cycle. It actually goes with your menstrual cycle. So there's like a whole waiting process. So when I got that call, I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I knew that if I was like, I have to do another round. It never occurred to me that I would have to go through that again. No, like it never crossed my mind that I heard IVF works. If you do it, it's going to work. And I never thought I would have to go through another egg retrieval. I was like, I'm going to get the embryo.
No, you thought that you were going to have the problem of having like too many embryos. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to, Especially
what 12. I thought would be the problem was when the embryos were transferred, hoping that it would stick.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I was most afraid of.
Right.
The whole time. I'm like, well, I hope my body can do it because, you know, I haven't gotten pregnant and I hope that I can hold. That was the thing. Mm-hmm. I knew I wasn't going to do another round with that clinic. And yet I had no idea. I felt very helpless. Like I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to go after. I was like, should I go back to my old clinic and go on Adderall? Nope, not an option. So I was talking to my friend who lived in California, and she had gone through IVF. It worked on the first try for her. And she was kind of coaching me through it. And she was like, listen, it is so common to have to do 2 rounds of egg retrievals. I was like, well, why didn't anybody tell me that? And so she said also that she had such a good experience at her clinic, which is called Spring Fertility. She quit her job in marketing. She was working for this other company, not a doctor. Mm-hmm. And she ended up working for Spring Fertility. And she's like, we just opened up an office in New York City. I live 2.5 hours from New York City. She's like, I would do anything for you to go there. I'm like, I can't go there. When you're doing this, you're at the doctor every day.
Yeah.
You're at the doctor getting blood work, check internal ultrasounds every single, like every day or every other day.
You're like, that's 5 hours in the car every day.
Yeah.
Right. And so my husband and I were up shopping at Woodbury Commons, which is in New York, and it was his birthday, November 7th. And my friend called me and she's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what? She's like, this clinic is doing this promotion where it's taking 5 women who had previously failed IVF cycles elsewhere and seeing if they could do it better. Looking at your chart, seeing if they could do it better. they're picking 5 women to give free cycles to.
Whoa.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we had just lost like $15,000 because we paid cash, right? I don't have insurance. A lot of insurance does not cover IVF.
It's just starting. Like, I feel like companies are just now starting to like, but there's no like, we got
but
you.
If you totally, and if you work for yourself, forget it. Like we pay for our own insurance. So I was like, okay. She's like, can you be in New York tomorrow? Meanwhile, I was already in New York. I was like, yeah, sure. We could be there tomorrow. It was just like very aligned and the universe was coming through. And so we went to see this doctor the next day. His name is Dr. Klatsky. And he looked at I got my records and he looked at everything and he sat with us for like 2 hours and he like went over everything.
Wow.
And regardless, I was like, I want to go. I want to come
You also
here.
just probably felt so validated and seen and like a human being.
That was the biggest thing. That was like the biggest thing. I was like, wow, nobody's sat with us like this and actually talked, because I said to him up front, I was like, I'm looking for a doctor that actually cares. I'm looking for a doctor that's going to look at my chart and say, I have a different game plan. I know what I want to do. It's going to be different than what we did before, because I had a consultation with my other clinic,
for that second round
to see what would they do differently. And they didn't really have an answer. They wanted to up my medication. When I went to Dr. Klatsky, he's like, I'm going to take your medication down, because more medication doesn't necessarily mean more eggs or healthier eggs.
No, but it costs more.
Right. It does cost more. That's a great point. So after leaving his office, which I kind of call it's like the Ferrari of fertility. It's like such a sick office. You don't even feel like you're in a doctor's office. You feel like you're in a spa. Like it's like that nice. Everyone is like,
well, they know that you're
drink? They had
so
a snack
sad.
bar.
Like they know that you're literally like so sad, like preparing yourself for the worst. So that's smart.
They really treat you like a human. And I feel like it really goes so far. It speaks volumes. Even down to like the coffee table books they had were just like relevant. And
what was it called again, the clinic?
Spring Fertility.
Spring Fertility.
Highly recommend. Use code Ashley. 10% off. Just kidding. So I left there thinking, he's like, we're going over all these applications of people that have sent this in, and we'll get back to you, basically. And I left there thinking, we're probably not going to get this, whatever. Even though I wanted to be positive, but I just wasn't in a positive state about it. I was just like neutral, like whatever happens, happens. We're on the drive home. My friend calls me and she's like, so how was it? I was like, it was amazing. And I told her the whole thing. And she's like, well, guess what? You got it. You got
She's like your
IVF
angel.
cycle.
Like, oh my God.
Literally, I sent her like a $500 bouquet of flowers. It was like the
you're
size
like, what's
of her
the
whole
biggest
dining room
bouquet
table.
you have? And you're like, double it. Like
that's literally what I did. That's literally what I did. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I owe you my child.
Yeah.
So I went through the process again at Spring. And I mean, long story short, I'll go into any details you want, but
well, how many like, what was.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell us how that process went. And then if there's something specifically that you can say that was the difference that they applied to your treatment that may have been the cause.
And maybe how was your like level of comfort and just being like a little bit of a
how
happier
that
person.
Affected it.
Yeah.
All of it. So change happened on all of those levels. One, with he took my medication down, and he, something that I want to say to all women who are in this position or will be, the lab matters, right? I never knew that. The IVF lab matters, where they keep your embryo, like where they fertilize
like the
your
conditions
eggs,
in which the embryo
is held and stored. Yeah. Like they did not open and look at the embryo until 5 days. The other clinic opened it like every 2 days to check on it. And anytime it's like exposed to air, anything, it impacts the quality. And
dude, that happens when you bake like a cake. Like you think that, like, come on.
That's such
like
a great
you
way to
can't
put it.
open the oven. Like, come on.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, 100%.
Jesus Christ.
And everything at this place
I'm not
was,
even
like,
a doctor.
top of the line. Yeah, that's so true. You could be a doctor.
It sounds like I should, maybe get a lab coat.
Doctor/baker.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's wild. I just didn't know how big of a difference the lab did. And they did this thing that I won't be able to explain, but it's like this calcium thing. It adds calcium.
It's for you or the embryo?
It's for the embryo. It like coats it with calcium to help it fertilize and help it expand,
or like strengthen or something.
Multiply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So there was just those elements. And then the way I was treated was just like night and day. It was like you really can't compare it because it was completely different.
Yeah.
In the best way. And I ended up like moving up to New York for like a month. So
I was going to say, how did you handle that
well,
logistically?
Here's the other thing is the financial stress. I mean, like how much of that being off your shoulders was like,
oh my God. I mean, what I got was like a $30,000 present.
Yeah.
But more than that, I got my son.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Priceless.
Okay, he came from that first round.
Well,
second round, but first round with that
first
clinic.
round with them. Yeah. So the doctor said to me, he's a very confident guy, very like almost like cocky, but I kind of liked it because I'm like, I want your confidence in this, you know? And he was just like, even our vanilla will be better than what you had. Like they're like, and I was like, okay. So I had like, I think 16 eggs that were retrieved. I had 20 something eggs that were retrieved, but 16 that were like fully grown. And the other part about that was, okay, this is important about the strategy of the eggs. Like most doctors will monitor you and they'll see that you have some eggs that are like leading the pack that are bigger and others need to catch up. And a lot of doctors will pull the trigger and do the egg retrieval and get those bigger eggs that are leading the way. And his strategy was, I don't care about those bigger eggs because there's way more eggs behind them that need time to mature. So he kind of like let those eggs go.
Yeah.
And he waited until
for the
all
bigger
those other
haul.
Yeah. And I think that made a huge difference too. So I just remembered that. So we did the egg retrieval, 16 eggs.
And who knows if like those big eggs that were leading the pack like
would have been healthy.
Or that they had left over from the medicine from the prior round. Like you don't know if, like you said, like if they were tainted or whatever. That's
so true. That's so true. I did everything pretty close together. So like, October I found out it wasn't viable. Middle to end of November we were back at it.
Yeah.
So when they were fertilized, they called me on day 6. The waiting with this one was so much harder. So much harder. And I was doing acupuncture. I was doing everything I could. I was celery juicing. I was drinking my celery every single morning. I did a cleanse. I was doing so many things to just like promote health and just make this happen. And he called me and he said, we have 7 embryos that we're sending for testing.
Wow.
7.
Because last time you had 1.
1.
Mm-hmm. This is also creeping. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this is creeping closer to your dad's anniversary and your birthday. So keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah. Good vibes there. So he sent the 7 and then he called me 10 days later. So much waiting. And he said, I got the update. He said, are you ready? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you have 2 viable embryos. And I was so happy, of course, like so happy. He said there was one that was undetermined. Like they took the cells off of it, but they couldn't tell if it was viable or not. And the rest were not healthy. So it was very interesting because I'm like, wow, I had so many embryos, but like so many that weren't healthy. So I was like looking into that and curious about that, like called the genetic company.
What did you find?
Learned more about it. It's really, nothing. I really didn't find anything. It was interesting.
Person to person,
just different. Yeah. And then I have other friends who have 7 and they're all healthy. I'm like, well, how come you didn't get pregnant? It's weird, on your own.
Yeah.
Because I could see having so many not healthy ones, why maybe that it was taking so long because it wasn't making a healthy embryo,
Right.
And so he's like, do you want to know the sex? And I was like, honestly, I just want to know, are they the same sex or are they opposite? And he said they were opposite. And I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And so then, of course, I was losing sleep over, what do I do? Do I transfer the boy? Do I transfer the girl? Like, how do I do this?
Did you ever think about doing both?
They don't do that
for
some reason. I don't remember why. He's like, you're not at the age where we would do that. It wasn't a thing. And it's too risky where, like, God forbid it didn't work out. Then I had no embryos left.
Right.
So I consulted a psychic about the embryos. The boy had, like, Maverick's embryo was graded higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so they always recommend, like, going with the highest graded embryo. Mm-hmm. So that was, that was present. And I selfishly was like, I kind of want a girl. Like, I really wanted a girl. I wanted to have a baby. It didn't matter. But I consulted a psychic and I didn't really tell her much about anything. And she's like,
isn't that funny? You always go into psychics and you want to trick them. You're like, how good are you?
I know.
I'm not going
to
tell you anything. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, I did tell her that I had 2 embryos. That's all I said. And she said, I see them both. And there's this boy that is like, I'm ready. Pick me. And he was just like, like me. And I was like crying, of course. Aww. And I'm like, okay, well, he is the stronger one. He's coming through. It just makes sense. And my dad. So it was just like, it was all of that.
Yeah.
So we transferred the embryo and immediately afterwards I was just like,
petrified.
How do you know it's in there? Yeah. Like, how do you know it's in there? Literally, we videotaped it. Like,
Does it hurt?
Like, we saw it go up.
Does it hurt?
No, it's the easiest process.
Does the retrieval process hurt?
No.
Oh. Huh.
It doesn't. It does. I didn't think it did.
Well, you're medicated for the retrieval.
You're asleep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they put you under, which I had never been under before, so that was interesting.
Okay.
And there's a couple other things that happened before we transferred him. I had like this thing called what's it called? A septum in my uterus, where I had like a wall in my uterus that they had to kind of like surgically remove in order for there to be blood flow in that spot in my uterus.
Did you just develop that, or did you have it forever?
They had always seen it on all the tests that I did, but this doctor is like very cautious.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even like the previous doctor, you're like, shouldn't that have been like an addressed thing?
Maybe it would have if I would have gone further in the process, but I wasn't going through the transfer process. So this was like before the transfer, they do this test where they make sure you don't have any polyps and things of that nature. That test really hurts. They like put saline into your uterus and like blow it up with the saline. It's like so painful. But he was like, I think we should do this. I had to pay out of pocket for that, which I think it was like $4,000. But I was just like, you know what? It's so worth it. Because
we made it this far.
You literally have this. You need to make sure the environment is perfect.
Yeah. And this is how great he was. He called me and we really went back and forth on it. And he was like, if you were my wife, I would want you to do this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I love when doctors say stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's so comforting. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'll be your wife. You're cute. Just kidding. JK.
Leaving with a baby and a new husband.
I mean, he did get me pregnant, Dr. Klatsky. So,
not in the way that doctor in like Ohio or whatever did when he had. God. Do you remember that?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it was like a fertility doctor, and he was using his own sperm. And like people found out like later, they're like, oh my God, like this small town, there were like 80 kids or something.
Oh. I cannot handle that. That's crazy.
Okay, keep going.
Really crazy. I mean,
tell us about the moment you took the test.
Oh, well, I kind of knew before. Like, I was testing, so I was like,
you're doing really a little like watching it like get a little bit darker.
I was watching.
Darker.
I just couldn't. Some people are like, I'm not gonna test. But I felt cramping and I had symptoms, and every day I was like writing my symptoms down. I was so hungry. I mean, I could have been like making them up, but I don't think I was. And so when we officially took the test together, Todd and I, we waited, they make you wait 14 days before the blood test. Talk about waiting. This office makes you
Sarah
wait.
Walsh, who we had on, was like, oh my God, like I didn't know that that they sold tests at Walgreens. Like she's like making fun of it. She's like, you're allowed to test yourself before that window.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so Todd and I took it together after I had already been testing a little bit, but I didn't really tell him. I just kind of kept it to myself. And so I already like kind of knew, but when we took it and we saw those lines, and it said pregnant, actually.
Yeah.
It said pregnant.
You're like, I want no guesswork. Like, I just
I just need to know. We were both hysterical. It was just the happiest moment of our lives. It was like everything that we had worked for was just like coming to fruition. It was manifesting, and it was just like, wow.
Because this in total was almost 2 years that you had been trying.
Yeah.
After the 3 years that you tried naturally, right?
Yeah.
No. So I had tried naturally for a year. So the whole thing was 3 years.
Okay. Did Todd ever hit you with "I told you so"?
Oh yeah, always. He still says it. I told you it was gonna happen, babe. I told you. I always knew it. I'm like, I know. Yeah. So it blew my mind. And then, you go through the blood tests, and it has to double your level, your HCG levels have to double.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you do a transfer, they inject you with a trigger shot called HCG. So that was the last shot that I took before they transferred the embryo. And I recorded it. I recorded every part of my journey. Still need to make something with all of it, but I recorded it. And
but a lot of it's, if you go back in your social media, and we'll link your social media, your Instagram handle in the show notes, so people that are interested can go and see it, because you had a lot of creative stuff out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I put on the song, shot, 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 shot. And I took that last trigger shot, and I was just like, okay, but you're injecting yourself with HCG. So when you test after they transfer it, it's still going to show up that you're pregnant.
Right.
Because it's you have the HCG in your system.
Until what week of pregnancy did you have to keep injecting yourself?
So when I didn't have to take any of those progesterone shots.
Okay.
That people have to take in their butt, which was kind of like a mind fuck for me, because I had the transfer, and they were like, okay, that's it. Now we wait. And I was like, there's no medicine. There's nothing for me to take, no shots, no nothing. And they're like, no, your body's going to do its thing. And this whole time I'm being supported by medicine.
You've been told that your body can't do its thing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it was really interesting to have to rebuild that trust with my body in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I saw the heartbeat, and that was the happiest moment. Every moment of it was the happiest moment of my life until
it
he
just
was
keeps
born.
getting better.
Yeah. And then every day, of course, I'm just like.
And how old is he now?
He's 10 months. I feel like our babies are similar in age. How old's your baby?
He is, he just turned a year. It's September 11th. So.
Oh my God.
Just over a year.
Oh
13 months.
That's so crazy.
And Maverick is a little baby model. He's so beautiful. He's so sweet. He's like a boy to a T. He's gets into everything, very active. We're so happy that you could be here with us. And what's next? Is Mav getting a sister anytime soon?
I hope so. Yeah, we're thinking about it.
Good. All right. Well, all good energy to you. Ashley Gordon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.